Greetings and salutations, this is Imperator Vespasian and his trusty sidekick.
Hello.
We have today our first Persian cavalry. We've already done 2 infantry videos, this is the first cavalry regiment. These cavalry are javelin troops or spear armed cavalry. And each one has a little box with its spare spears in, which is quite cool. The figures are actually plastic conversions. They are from the Des Volt range of Fireforge, Mongolian cavalry. And I've converted them to be Persian cavalry. They have their nice little Persian regimental banner and a few little bits and bobs. That is out of the Arab cavalry box, the little spear box. And the arms generally come from the Dark Age Warriors sprues from Gripping Beast. The heads are handmade. The funny sock on their head. What do you think?
Not pretty good.
I went for blue again as a regimental colour. The officer has lamellar armour there, which is made by cutting a normal Greek hoplite in half and sticking the Greek hoplite body on top of the cavalry legs. And the bottom half came in very handy for another project which I will show you later. So, moving on to questions.
Alrighty.
Well, there's not really much to say about them. They're armed with spears. One guy's got an axe. They're pretty generic Persian cavalry.
Okay. Are they light or heavy cavalry?
All Persian cavalry at this period was light.
How come?
Because it was a light, fast-moving army, which relied on weight of numbers. The heavy stuff at this time was on chariots.
Or elephants?
And elephants, yeah. Elephants and chariots. As time went on, the Persians did move into having armoured cavalry, which was fully armoured with a armoured skirt over the horse, and they were completely armoured top to bottom, which was relatively effective. Really, it was just a good way of cooking cavalry while they marched. Persian cavalry also only rode their horses in battle. All depictions of Persian cavalry on pottery and friezes and things show the Persians walking with their horses, not riding them.
It's a bit stupid.
Probably not to tire the horse out, so they only actually used the horse to either hunt food or to fight.
Okay.
And you see this throughout all ancient history. You have lots of depictions of cavalrymen, and usually the cavalrymen are walking at the side of their horse. So it was probably quite common not to ride a horse normally. So you would walk with your horse, you would march with your horse rather than riding on the back. Also, the horses were a lot smaller than modern horses, and probably didn't have the stamina of modern horses, which is why chariots were so popular. In fact, when the Greeks refer to cavalry, mostly they're actually talking about chariots. The Greeks didn't have much in the way of cavalry of their own. Most Greek cavalry would have been chariots, not cavalry. Not horsemen on horseback.
Yeah.
Alexander had a famous cavalry unit, the Companions, who were sort of relatively armoured cavalry. Just throwing that out there. But other than that, cavalry was something not really known in Greece. Mainly probably because there isn't that many areas you can really use cavalry effectively. And when the Persians invaded Greece, they had huge problems with their cavalry, because the Greeks chose to fight in places where you couldn't use cavalry. So Persian cavalry was... The way Persian cavalry usually fought, it wasn't actually riding up to the enemy and hitting them. They were ranged, so the cavalryman would carry a relatively long spear for the time, about 6 to 8 feet long spear, or they would carry javelins, and they would throw the javelins. and they wouldn't actually get too close.
Yeah.
They would also have bowmen on the back of horses as well, who would fire from the back of the horse. Would later become famous fighting the Romans, the Persian bow-mounted cavalry, the Parthian cavalry, who could fire backwards. I think really any cavalry could fire backwards if you wanted it to.
Yeah, but these are like conscripted people, really, aren't they?
Yeah, well,
They're not trained. Like
these guys wouldn't be given a horse. It's not like the Napoleonic period. They would probably be their horse. They would have grown up riding horses, these particular people, and they would be taken from tribes that were part of the Persian Empire who rode horses for a living.
Like the Mongols.
Yeah, not the Mongols, the people of the steppe, the Saka. There were lots of horse-based cultures around at the time, and the Persians enveloped those little empires, or those little countries, and they became the Persian cavalry. And the Persian cavalry was the long arm of the Persian army, and the Persian cavalry was the hitting blow that the Persians used in battle. It was scary. All the massive amounts of men on horseback, which would swamp your own men on horseback if you had them. Next question.
Armour-wise, they just use cloth just like the infantry.
Honestly, at that period of history, the Achaemenid bit, in fact, right up until beginning of Alexander's time, the beginning of the Roman Empire, horses just weren't big enough to carry a man with armour. They just weren't big. They weren't. It took thousands of years of breeding horses to breed horses to the point where you could actually ride them into battle. And certainly not the huge European horses, which were huge things, and they could have a knight on the back of them in full body armour. The horses just didn't exist at the time. It took a lot of breeding to get to the point where you could actually have real cavalry. I mean, as far as the stirrup goes, a lot of people talk about the stirrup being a sort of important thing. Well, stirrups are useless in combat. It may help you ride a horse, but if you run into someone with a spear, you're just going to be pushed off your horse. The stirrups aren't going to stop you from falling off the horse.
Yeah.
They're just to help you to ride. The Romans didn't use stirrups at all, and they'd already been invented by then. The Romans didn't use them. They used a special type of saddle with sort of two prongs at the back and two prongs at the front, and so they could hang out of their horse to hit people with a sword, and then pull themselves back up because the saddle was stable. So the saddle was the riding platform on top of the horse. Again, didn't use stirrups. There's no reason. It wasn't. It's just the stirrups were not the big amazing thing that was amazing that a lot of historians say, hey, the stirrups are amazing because it meant you could have cavalry. But no, you had cavalry before the stirrup, and even after the stirrup, many people didn't use stirrups. Next question?
Last question.
Last question.
So Darius and Xerxes, the kings, didn't really care about their soldiers having armour. They were more relied on the amount of men they had to invade and conquer a country.
Well, again,
what I mean is they don't care about death count.
Well, the best way to limit the number of dead soldiers is to win the battle quickly. The best way to have least amount of casualties in war is to win the war very quickly, preferably in one big battle. Speed is important, and moving your army very quickly to engage the enemy, even across whole tracts of modern-day Turkey, marching all the way from modern-day Turkey all the way around to Greece by land. If you have a huge amount of heavily armoured soldiers, it's going to slow your army down. You didn't have roads back then, or not roads like the Romans had. No, they were roads. So putting all your troops in armour, first of all, it's very expensive. And when you've got 1.5 million men under arms, not that they're all fighting at the same time, there's too many men to carry, but when you have that many soldiers within the empire, you can't arm all of those soldiers. Most of them will turn up to work, so to speak, as a soldier, carrying their gear, their actual gear that they own. They would have been issued, not these guys, these certainly wouldn't, but these chaps here would have been issued their spear with a little apple or whatever it was on the end. We did a video on that before. And they would be issued a shield. But other than that, they would be pretty much wearing their own shoes and stuff. I would assume that, just like the Greeks, once a year you would be issued some sort of uniform that you could wear. That's not the Persians are very well organised, but they had such a large empire. It was enormous. It's like 60% of the entire population of humans on Earth lived in the Persian Empire. It was just, you can't get out. The Greeks couldn't get it into their head how big Persia was.
Still one.
Yeah, they didn't care. They really weren't interested. They weren't scared. Particularly,
because they don't understand such a thing.
Yes, they really.
To them, it's just Greece is the only place that's, to them, it's the only place that's democracy. That's the only people they care about.
Well, the Greeks only knew about places where you could row. So they lived in the Black Sea. The whole of the Black Sea area was Greek at the time, and they lived all around the coast of Turkey. They lived all the way down as far as Judea. So they lived all around there, and they also paddled all the way to Italy and to Syracuse, all that area over there. So they went all around anywhere where you can get a boat. But if you couldn't carry a boat, or if you couldn't row a boat there, they weren't interested.
Like Persia's like mostly desert.
Yeah, Persia's mostly desert and mountains and stuff. So the Greeks didn't care. They just weren't interested in that bit. And they never went there, and so they never realised how big it was. I mean, the Persians even... They basically went as far as China. It was a huge... they were certainly on the border with China, because they went as far as Afghanistan and all the way out there. So it was a huge, huge area. India, all of that was Persian. And so parts of southern Russia that they managed to nick. So, yeah, Persia was absolutely enormous. And the Persians, one of the Persian kings, Artaphernes, was it? He was the king of... It might have been Datus. It could have been Artaphernes, or his father. Tried to explain to a Greek emissary how big Persia was. And he sort of tried to map it out for him and say, look, this is the world, obviously missing out America, but this is the world, and you're this dot Britain. Here.
And Britain and Europe.
Yeah, I doubt I'm not sure. The Persians, let's think, I'm trying to think of the maps that were around at the time. I think the Greeks were aware of the existence of Europe, certainly. They were aware that all that area existed.
But England, no one visited England until the Romans.
Well, who would want to visit England? It was a horrible place.
How would you know if you'd never been there?
It was solid time. It was rainforest full of naked barbarians who burn people in wicker men. You just don't want to go to England. They don't want to. There was a Roman senator who said you can always tell a senator from England, from Britain, from Albany. You can always tell a senator from Albany because all they do is complain about the weather. And that's 2,000 years ago. So the British have always been like that. They've always been grumpy.
Because we don't have a specific climate. It's cold, warm. It's never a specific heat. Yeah. It's horrible.
True. Yeah, it's true. Britain has... Our version of summer is rain with a bit of sun, and you might get 2 days where it's so hot, like a few hundred people die of heat stroke, and then the day after it's pouring rain. That happened last summer. It got really hot for 2 days, and about 400 people died of heat stroke. And then suddenly, so you had the news people saying, oh, this is global warming, we're all going to we're going to be like the Sahara in 20 years, and the day after we had monsoon rain, and they were complaining about floods. So yeah, that's British weather. No wonder the British are like the British.
We couldn't cope with the heat.
And the funny thing is, when people migrate to Britain, they adopt the British attitude to life. So
complaining of life.
Just whining about the weather and stuff. It's really weird how people who don't have ancestry in Britain can very quickly adopt the British whining, complaining way of going around things. Yeah. But as for the Persians, they were probably happy all the time. Look at the colours, they're all bright colours. They look bright colours of Persians.
Well, bright colours reflect heat, don't they?
Yeah, that's the idea.
That's probably why they wear bright colours.
Yeah.
Unlucky immortals, eh?
Medieval Europe, very, very bright colours are worn. And medieval Europe was...
Oh yeah, Europe used to be rainforest, didn't it?
Oh, this is after the rainforest period. The Romans cut all the trees down. Very hard to have rainforest if the Romans cut all the trees
You need
down.
fortresses, don't you?
Yeah.
Barbarians.
Well, the Romans just didn't like trees, they found them offensive.
It's because they're so small.
It was like, you've got trees here, we're going to cut them all down. Why? We're woodsmen, we live in the trees, we don't care, we're Roman. You're going to be Roman now, you're going to live in a house like the rest of us. And go send your kids to school and get educated. Yeah, it didn't work out in long really, did it?
The first school I invented was sitting under a tree and listening to someone while everyone was doing their daily work around you.
Yes, and where was that?
Oh, as in... Right, it was like Greek or Rome.
Athens. Yes, the first ever school. They actually sat under a tree in the town square. And the kids had to do a lesson with people walking around them saying, oranges, 5 hour... What currency did the Greeks use?
No idea.
Oh, come on.
Well,
I've got
these
coins
days...
somewhere. Well, these days...
Euros.
Yeah.
So say euros.
Yeah. €5 for an orange, that sort of thing. And they'd be trying to do their lesson at the same time. So that would be fun. And you'd also have a senator arguing with another senator. And yeah, that was fun. Would have been awesome growing up in Athens, wouldn't it?
No.
No?
No. This is around about the same time when the Persians came and murdered everyone.
Well, arguably that was the fault of democracy.
You need democracy though, don't you, really?
Well, do you?
It's kind of important. In our way of life, democracy is incredibly important.
It took 2,000 years to get it working though, didn't it?
That's because the Greeks had a very limited understanding of what democracy was.
Well, democracy worked in Greece because Persia had democracy.
What do you mean democracy worked in Greece?
Well, it did work in Greece.
It was terrific.
It did, because while all the politicians were screaming in each other's faces, they weren't passing laws. And if politicians don't pass laws, the people live happy lives, and the government leaves them alone. Whereas if you have a dictator, he can just pass laws and make people's lives very complicated and unnecessary. So, democracy is quite good, because it takes so long to get anything actually passed into law.
Well, not these days.
Not these days, no. The government just says, I don't know, hate speech, and then bans people from using Twitter. So that's what the government does now. But if we actually had a democracy in Britain, you could actually stop the legislators passing laws doing that.
We do have democracy in Britain, though.
No, we have a two-party state.
We vote.
We have a two-party state.
That's democracy right there.
Technical term for Britain, the political technical term for Britain would be an anarcho-tyranny. Technically, we would be an anarcho-tyranny, which doesn't sound as bad as it sounds. It's just a technical term for it. Because the people can elect people. That's the anarchy in the system, and the tyranny is the government has absolute power.
So
it does.
If the government don't do something that no one likes, you get a revolution and you get kicked out of Parliament.
Yes, but a revolution in Britain is voting out your MP. So it's not revolution with pitchforks and burning torches.
It will be that if it was a dictatorship.
Yes, if it was a dictatorship, you actually have pitchforks. Actually, nowadays you'd have tanks and machine guns and Molotov cocktails. But back in the day,
That's to involve the Russians or anything, doesn't it? Molotov cocktails. Come on.
Molotov cocktails weren't invented. They were actually invented by the Finns.
Sure about that?
Yeah, because the Russians were bombing Finland, and the international community said, you're not allowed to drop bombs on cities. And Russia said, we're not dropping bombs, we're dropping bread parcels. And so the Finns were using Molotov cocktails, which is a type of flame weapon, which is illegal.
Yeah, I told us this before.
Yeah, and the international community said, you can't use flame as a weapon. And the Finns said, we're not, we're giving cocktails to go with the bread. That was their argument. See, so nothing ever changes. It's just live trolling, isn't it? But as I was saying before you so rudely interrupted me, the Greek city-states that were ruled by the Persians in Ionia and in modern-day Turkey and around the Black Sea, in southern Ukraine, a lot of those were democracies, even under Persian rule. They could still function as democracies because the prime minister or the tyrant, whoever you put in charge, was simply the representative of Persia. So you could actually have an empire with all these different ways of running countries, but it worked. The system actually worked. And the Persians really do get a raw deal from the historical standpoint. They were actually quite civilized. It was really the Greeks that were barbarians, or at least from the Persian point of view.
Yeah.
Whereas we're descended from Athens, really. The system of government we have today is descended from Athens. But that's just happenstance, really. But that wouldn't have happened had Greece fell. Rome took the mantle up. And then Rome
didn't really fall, did it?
Well, no.
Because the Romans were Greeks.
That's true. That is very true. I mean, Carthage wasn't remotely...
It just moved.
...democratic, but that was a Greek colony. And they spent a huge amount of time at war with the Greeks until the Romans finally finished them off.
Carthaginians, they were also the ones that did horseback carrying archers as well, didn't they?
They hired Iberian, Spanish. They had Spanish light horse who used bows, yes. And they also used the Greeks? Or was it the Thracians? The Thracians used a type of sling on the end of a staff, which was like a really long-range slingshot, but they had it on the end of a stick. So it was quite a good weapon. The Persians, they mainly used... they would have used slingers if an army that joined them had slingers. But generally they were just infantry. Infantry and light cavalry. And the chariots came out to play whenever you had a bit of open ground to fight on. And the elephants came out if you wanted to trample your own men to death.
Yeah.
This is very useful for trampling your own men. Yeah. Right. You've done your 3 questions. Have you got anything else?
4 questions, huh?
Anything else to question?
No.
Right. So what have we got to look forward to in the next video?
I have no idea.
I've got some more cavalry to show you. I've got some bowmen. Unfortunately, I can't base them because I haven't got any bases.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the downside of deciding to use a different type of basing. I explained this in another video why I did that.
They cost lead figures and they don't fit.
They've got a lead base. Most of the figures I've got for the Greco-Persian War are lead, and they don't fit on the clear plastic bases. You'd have to cut the feet off, and that's just too much. I don't want to risk.
I'll do Greek section.
Again, I haven't actually got round to getting a lot of the Greeks done. I've done quite a few. I will see what I get done, and we'll see what we can do. Oh, we could always try our army of Hela. Or was it Hades? Sorry, we're not talking about Vikings, are we? So Hades.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Outro.
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and comment down below what you think of the Persian cavalry, light cavalry.
Yeah.
That's it from me.
And everything from here. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.
Sayonara.